Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Just had a long member state briefing, and I thought it was also important to meet with the press. So as Alessandra indicated, I will start with first by delivering my remark, but after that, of course, we'll go in the Q&A. So in my meeting with the member state, I stress that it has been almost 10 days since the State of Israel banned the entry of humanitarian aid and commercial supplies into the Gaza Strip. Somehow, situation similar to the one which prevailed in October 2023. This decision threatens the life and survival of civilians in Gaza, who have had only a brief respite from 16 months of brutal war. The ceasefire agreement has shown that whenever there is a political will, humanitarian assistance can be unhindered and uninterrupted. Between the beginning of the ceasefire and March 2, humanitarian assistance increased tenfold. It is critical that the aid is allowed into Gaza again to maintain the progress made during the first phase of the ceasefire and meet people's basic needs. I also echo the call of the Secretary General for the immediate, unconditional and dignified release of all hostages, the dignified release of Palestinian detainees as previously agreed, and for the ceasefire to hold. I think it's important also to shed light of the situation in the West Bank. In the West Bank, the operation by the Israeli security forces, which started 6 weeks ago, is severely impacting Palestinians, especially in the north. Palestinian armed groups are also increasingly active in the area. Several refugee camps have been nearly emptied, displacing around 40,000 Palestinian refugees. This is the largest displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank since 1967. The large-scale demolition of buildings, including residential areas, is alarming. People have nowhere to return to. UNRWA continues to track displaced people and provide humanitarian aid, including food, healthcare, and basic items. In Syria, we have witnessed over the last few days terrible violence. One of our staff was also tragically caught up in the crossfire. We continue in the country to provide healthcare and education, which for many Palestinian refugees are absolutely essential for their survival. And in Lebanon, the socio-economic crisis have increased the reliance of Palestinian refugees on UNRWA services. We just did a survey, and basically we have seen that the UNRWA cash distribution to Palestinian refugees has become one of the main sources of income for 70% of the Palestinian refugees in the country. Now, talking about the Knesset law. The Knesset legislation, that's what I briefed the member state, is not just about UNRWA. This is about any individual or organization calling for adherence to international humanitarian law or promoting the right of Palestinians. When a number of international NGOs have already been silenced, there is now a larger concerted effort in Israel to undermine or restrict through legislative measures the operation of international organizations and NGOs. The agency has faced serious operational challenges since the Israeli parliament anti-UNRWA legislation came into force at the end of January. In the occupied East Jerusalem, the agency is facing increased pressure from the municipality to vacate premises and end service provision. International staff have been effectively expelled from the occupied West Bank due to the lack of valid visa. While some international staff remain in Gaza, Israel refuses to facilitate their entry or exit via Kerem Shalom. Despite these challenges, UNRWA will stay and deliver on its General Assembly mandate until it is no longer possible to do so in a principled manner. For example, since the ceasefire began in Gaza, we have provided food to 2 million people, opened nearly 40 new emergency shelters, and provided over 60,000 people with tents. Our health team supported the polio vaccination campaign last month, reaching nearly 200,000 children below the age of 10. Through temporary learning space and remote learning, we are also reaching children with education. As an anecdote, we have opened registration for distance learning for the children in Gaza beginning of January. 3 weeks later, we had more than 250,000 children having registered. And today, 70% of them are having distance learning through a digital platform. In the West Bank, nearly 50,000 children go to the agency school, and hundreds of thousands of people rely on our health services. I must highlight again here the disinformation campaign portraying the agency as a terrorist organization and our staff as terrorist or terrorist sympathizer. I do believe that, talking to an audience of journalists, that checking facts and reporting through first-hand official sources is a foundation of independent reporting and key to countering this vicious campaign. This is especially critical given the prolonged ban on independent international media in Gaza. There have been no independent international media in Gaza since October 2023. So I continue to urge you, representative of the media, to do more to get into Gaza to cover untold stories and verify information. I ask the same to member states to help journalists to have access to Gaza. When it comes to funding, UNRWA situation, I mean, you would be surprised if I would tell you that everything is under control. It is obviously critical and precarious. The cash flow is managed monthly, and we urgently require additional financial support if the agency is to survive. Now, just to conclude and to tell you what has been the ask today and over the last few weeks, this is a time of tremendous geopolitical uncertainty. For UNRWA, the statu quo is no longer an option, but we have a choice to make, we, these member states, international community. We can allow the agency to implode due to the fierce disinformation campaign, the Knesset legislation, and the suspension of funding by key donors. Collapse, I believe, would create a dangerous vacuum in the occupied Palestinian territory and send shockwaves through Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. An environment in which children are deprived of education and people lack access to basic services is fertile ground for exploitation and extremism, and this is a threat to peace and stability in the region and beyond. Alternatively, UNRWA can be supported to progressively conclude its mandate within the framework of a political process like that championed by Saudi Arabia, the European Union, and the League of Arab States through the Global Alliance for the implementation of the two-state solution. The agency, would this be the case, would then gradually transition its public-life services to empowered and prepared Palestinian institutions. And this would preserve the right of Palestinian refugees and their access to basic services. I have also repeatedly stressed that dismantling the agency abruptly will only deepen the suffering of Palestinian refugees, but it will not cancel the refugee status. The rights of Palestinian refugees exist independently of the agency. So if UNRWA ceases to protect and assist Palestinian refugees, their right will not only remain, but there will be much greater emphasis on the right to return or to be resettled, for which UNRWA has no mandate. So to conclude, the main ask to member states has been sustain UNRWA until the political direction of travel is clear. That is, until the international community considers a political pathway proposed by Arab states through the recovery reconstruction plan outlined in the Cairo Declaration and the proposal of the Global Alliance for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. Thank you.